Roizen's career has taken numerous turns into larger and smaller amounts of social and authoritative power. When she began back at Stanford, she was a writing student with a small cluster of a network mostly comprising of friends. It was a friend of hers who introduced her to the hiring manager of her first career job, a perfect representation of delivering private information. Once she earned her first position with Tandem, she had planted a position to expand her network by having direct access to high executives in the company. Postgraduate school, Roizen partnered with her brother, who was a computer programmer, to create TeamMaker. The strongest part of her network during this time was her ability to rely on numerous news reporters to market her company to potential consumers. By attending social clubs and events related to the press and software development, Roizen strengthened her network using the shared activities principle. She was able to meet people to recommend and solicit her company program at a very minimal monetary cost at social gatherings that were not directly associated with work. During this time, she was continually broadening and adding to her network, not only for her company, but also to support her in the future. She was building her network to be able to access different skill sets, which was another note of network strength. From supporting Apple products for an extended period of time, she had strengthened her network to be considered for and offered a vice president position with Apple. Roizen continually called upon contacts in her network and strengthened relationships as she relied on her network to support Apple during its struggling challenges. By building the relationships while CEO of TeamMaker, she had created a network to help support her in order to strengthen Apple. And it worked. It was her ability to rely on her network to show support for Apple that showed just how strong of a network she had truly built. It was strong enough that she used her contacts to mend a relationship between Apple and Macintosh. After deciding to leave Apple, Roizen had moved into a mentor capitalist role. It was during this time that Roizen had created her strongest network. It was at this point in her career Roizen became a super connector. Roizen not only openly accepted people into her network, but would refer those newfound connections to the others in her network. She was in complete control of her network, absolute power. It was when she moved to her role with SoftBank that Roizen fully utilized every aspect of her network. At this stage in her career, she became the one people came to and connected with, a complete opposite of where she had started when she graduated college. Roizen showed strong characteristics of all aspects of the articles we had covered in this module. Beginning with Grant's book on give and take, Roizen showed how throughout her career she had mostly been a matcher, with varying times being a giver or taker. It is slightly alluded to that Roizen was the negative side of a giver when she was with her collegiate boyfriend, from the statement of her slipping into a supportive role for her boyfriend rather than pursuing goals of her own. This statement made me believe she was being too much of a giver and on the bottom of the success spectrum Grant had explained in his book and speech. The point in Roizen's career that completely exemplifies her matcher style is when she was in her TeamMaker CEO role. Roizen would spend numerous amounts of time with the press and people in software clubs and associations. By giving her time and efforts to these people, she in turn would receive attention to her company and grow consumer visibility to her company. Once she had sold TeamMaker, she went into a mentor capitalist role, where she was purely a giver. She would connect people with other people or segments of her network to help them out with no real benefit to herself, other than continuing to build her network. This shows how she was on the successful side of the spectrum Grant had alluded to. During her time at SoftBank, Roizen reflected as a giver as well. While she would evaluate a potential investment on the person's proposal and either deny or accept them for a loan, she would always give advice to anyone who had sent in a request. During her time with Apple, Roizen most commonly represented a taker. She had put in time building her network to request help to aid her in building Apple back up. She cashed in the good merit built with her network and requested people in her technological network to openly support Apple. A prime example of this is when she requested Bill Campbell from Intuit to support Apple. Roizen exemplified the 6 principles of persuasion stated in C.L. Dini's article throughout her career as well. Several people throughout the case study stated how outgoing and personable Roizen was. She made people like her. She worked with the press and was always respectful of their time and stories during her time with TeamMaker, which showed the reciprocity principle. She used social proof to build Apple back up by flexing her power of her network to support Apple openly. The authority principle was exemplified by her network's outward support of Apple as well. They thought, other big software companies were supporting Apple, why shouldn't we? It was when Heidi was in her role with SoftBank that she most represented the authority principle. She would be the one directing entrepreneurs to grow their business from her knowledge. She would respond to people who were denied loans to show courtesy and show intelligence. It was in the same role the scarcity principle was employed. Only a select few were good enough to receive the financial backing of SoftBank. It was restricted to people in certain geographic areas and industries as well. While Heidi may not have been the sole proprietor of this strategy, she definitely enforced it in her role with SoftBank. When Heidi began building her network, she had a small cluster of friends and family, according to Uzi and Dunlap's article. She used her connection with her friend to get her first job with Tandem, as we discussed. An example of her network tree is shown here. She relied upon the same network to start her first company, Teamaker, with her brother. It was with this company that her network had taken off. Networks offer three main benefits, according to Dunlap and Uzi, being private information, access to diverse skill sets, and power. These were used by Heidi as she operated as a mentor capitalist. She would be contacted on different ideas or opportunities and would direct those in her market to someone who would benefit from the knowledge. This arrangement summed up how she had the full benefit of her network. While with Apple, Roizen flexed her muscles and used her network to support her and pull Apple out of the doldrums of the technological market, a prime example of the power derived from her network. An example of how strong her network is shown here. Her time with SoftBank perfectly exemplified the strength of her network, as she was the one sought out, not the other way around. People came to her for knowledge and connections.